So, mastery or mistakes? Classic WoW's first seasonal server is about to close forever. Season of Mastery review. It is, yes, it was, yes, Season of Astery is what it was. Let's fucking be honest. I think that you want to know how this is why Season of Mastery was a fucking joke, okay? It's because that after all of the effort and all of the time that people put in to Season of Mastery, all they did in order to give the players their special tabard for doing a deathless Nax raid, completing Nax Ramus on 40-man without having anybody die on any of the bosses, doing Immortal on 40-man Nax, which is rippy as fuck. You can have people die on that in like a second. Obviously, and that's also no world buffs too. You had a few extra little advantages from Season of Mastery, like you had this mind control wand, etc. But for the most part, you didn't have that much stuff. And guess what? They gave them a TCG tabard. An existing TCG tabard, and all they did is they took the message that they gave you for the tribute to immortality back in TOC, and they changed, this horse to this tabard. They used the exact same thing. They just copy-pasted it for one of the biggest accomplishments. They put the least amount of effort into Season of Mastery. So it's no surprise that it fell apart. Let's watch what Willie has to say about it, and we'll go from there. They skipped to KT. It doesn't matter. Like, don't you get it? Like, there still should have been a tabard that was more interesting than what it was.
Remember Season of Mastery? It should be coming to a close fairly soon, you know. Releasing 16th of November 2021, Season of Mastery, or SoM, was a cluster of fresh Classic realms. It was Blizzard having a go at redoing Classic with alterations based upon community feedback, as well as...
Yeah, see, that was a mistake. You should never listen to the community. They're stupid. They don't know what they want. If they want a real Season of Mastery, they can talk to me. All right, like, I fucking know what people want. Give us a boob slider, give us some different types of raids, give us some real content, make the gear better, and allow people to do some crazy fucking shit, and then you'll see people come back for Season of Mastery. Why was the Talisman a Binding Shard not in Season of Mastery? Why were we not able to, let me think. What were some of the other things that they should have added into Season of Mastery? They should have added the original Ashbringer into Season of Mastery. Just put it in a game. Why not? See what happens.
Well, just trying to spice things up and offer a bit of a different experience. And with the Nax 40 releasing back at the end of July and a roughly 11 to 13 month estimated duration, the project at this point is all but complete. So how did it go? What went well? What was well received? Did anything go terribly wrong? And the biggest question of all, is Blizzard going to be doing something like this again?
I think that they're probably scared to do another Season of Mastery. I do think that they should do a Season of Mastery, but not without some changes. But instead with all of the changes. Change, like, give Ret Paladins Crusader Strike. Give Moonkins better mana regen. Make Arms Warriors do more damage. Like, change the way that the classes are played, throw around the balance, make arcane mages better. That's what they need to fucking do. Yeah, give you Frostmourne or something. Make the leveling way faster. And I think that's another big factor, is like, I would have loved to do Season of Mastery Molten Core if I could zone in with buffs that wouldn't die, that wouldn't go away whenever I died, and I didn't have to level all the way up to level 60. Like, the leveling in Season of Mastery was just too slow.
Before we go on though, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Naraka Blade Point, who are currently offering a huge 50% discount on Xbox or free with Xbox Games Pass. What is Naraka Blade Point though? Imagine a battle royale, but instead of it being building or shooting, it's combined a mix of melee weapons and hero skills to create a unique take on the genre, with less need for aiming and more prediction-based skills. Naraka Blade Point is fast-paced, and a key part of your ability is your grappling hook that can be used to access all kinds of areas on the map, or
Yeah, this
even
looks
as a
cool.
tool to knock down enemies. Each hero has unique skills that set it apart from others. Takaji's Earthshaker is a huge spinning AoE that lands in a massive damaging attack. New weapons were also added to keep the game fresh, such as the dual blades, which can fire off many quick attacks in short succession. Customize your character in more or less any way you want, and
That's
I
good.
really mean that. If you can think of it, you can probably try to make it in Naraka Blade Point.
That's
You
about
can
right.
even
That looks
upload
good.
your own image and the game will recreate to you. Click the link in the
Doesn't look like
description
him at
right
all.
now to try Naraka Blade Point and you'll get a 50% discount on Xbox. Many thanks to Naraka Blade Point for the sponsor today. Let's talk WoW. Quick mention that transfers from seasonal servers to live ones or error are now available. And
Great.
importantly, your chosen transfer is one-way, irreversible, and final. If you do not transfer your character off, they are going to be deleted eventually. We don't know what date seasonal servers are formally closing yet, but you should transfer your characters sooner rather than later. So, Season of Mastery, the vanilla fresh servers. The Burning Crusade had come out a few months prior, and Blizzard decided now was the time to roll out these servers and see if people would.
This was stupid too. If they had waited for like 2 or 3, like multiple months after Burning Crusade came out, like in between tier 5 and tier 6 or something like that, I think a lot of people would probably play Season of Mastery. It's just that it was like still in the middle of Burning Crusade hype, and people didn't want to go over and do that instead.
Truly interested enough in Classic to do it all again, this time with a lot less of a no changes attitude.
Yeah.
And when did Season of Mastery start, you ask? Right in the middle of Phase 2 of TBC, during the most challenging raiding patch that Classic had ever seen. That was pre-nerf SSC and Tempest Keep, which at the time were literally required to do if you wanted to see Illidan on the top of the Black Temple,
Yeah, you had
because
to do them.
achievements were still in the game. This was not ideal timing, not only due to how hype the current TBC.
And Blizzard did this before. They released Nax Ramus on Classic WoW. They released it 7 days after Shadowlands came out. I still don't know why they did that. They should have just pushed it back for 2 weeks just to give people time to play Shadowlands.
Content
yeah,
was, but
so
also
dumb.
because it felt like Classic was trying to compete with your attention against the Burning Crusade.
It's weird. Yeah, like why have 2 products cannibalize each other from the same company? It just is weird.
It really didn't help how popular these realms would be.
Yeah.
Speaking of the realms, there were, well, quite a few of them. Over on European English-speaking realms, for example, we had 2 PvE servers and 3 PvP servers for Season of Mastery. On live Wrath of the Lich King Classic right now, there are 13 realms total. That's including the 3 fresh realms which launched with Wrath. Even if we were to take away those fresh realms, did Season of Mastery ever merit having half as many realms as the live game does? I'm pretty sure the answer
No, it didn't merit even that many that it had.
to that at every single point in time has been no, absolutely nowhere near. It created an environment where players made their best attempts in advance to mark out a server as this will be the one where everybody plays, and that worked.
And also, like, again, I think this whole idea of servers is stupid. There shouldn't be a server. There should just be everybody playing in the same server. Just make different layers of the same server. Do that over and over and over. And no, I'm not a fucking server engineer. I don't know how this actually works. But what I do fucking know is that it works on Retail WoW, and it should probably work on this game too. You have connected realms on Retail WoW. Don't tell me you can't do it in Classic also. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, ESO has this. Other games have this. I don't want to hear it.
By the way, on Europe it was Dreadnought, which is of course the one named after Warrior Tier, and
Yeah,
over on
and
NA
Jom
it was
Kabar.
Jom Kabar,
Yeah.
which is a very nice melee trinket. I'm seeing a pattern here. Just name a realm after something to do with warriors and everyone will go play there. Interesting. As for the other realms,
Makes
I can
sense.
see there being an argument for having
the best
one
class.
PvE server, just like the Wrath Fresh realms did. Apart from that though, there were a lot of players who frankly just rolled on a realm which was destined to die off in population pretty fast.
Exactly. Like, nobody wants to play on a realm that is dead. This is not fun. And I think that also it creates like a, you know, whenever something's circling the drain, the closer to like going down the drain it is, the faster it goes. So as soon as you start to see people leave, then more people start leaving, and then as soon as you start to see more people leaving, and then it's like, oh my god, well, I should leave too, and it's like, oh, I should leave, and then finally you have like the people that are remaining, and then yeah, it's a snowball effect, and you have the people that are remaining, and many of them just have no interest in playing on a dead server, so they either quit the game or they transfer off themselves.
So whether it was massively overestimating the number of players who would be interested in seasonal servers or just testing out how people reacted to the choice, there were too many realms for the launch of SoM. There were also a bunch of changes to the content pacing of the game, with Blizzard opting to bring forwards loads of stuff which would usually have come much later, including PvP gear being available from launch. Don't worry, we're going to be talking more about PvP later.
That was a bad idea, by the way.
Being opened straight away, when in Classic it was
they just shouldn't, like, you want to know my honest opinion? I think they should just take the arena system from BC or Wrath and just put it in Classic WoW and just say, like, hey, the only arenas that you can do are 5v5 and RBG 10 men, because like you can never balance for 3v3 or 2v2 in Classic WoW, right? It would just be completely broken. So just make it a larger, like, you can only do RBGs. And if you have an RBG rating of like 2K or something like that, you can buy the high Warlord gear. And also add that way later on. Because if you don't do that, that's all people are going to do, and they're not going to do the raids.
A few months after launch, the tier 0.5 quest lines in Classic, these were as late as AQ40, and the level 50 Sunken Temple class quest, which awarded various decent quality blue items, including Diamond Flask, which no longer snapshotted healing anymore. That finally got nerfed. Overall, I liked having the extra choice in where to get gear from, but oftentimes these updated sources kind of just replace the old ones. Itemization in Diamol is notably better than a lot of the stuff that came before it. Tier 0.5 is catch-up gear for the guy who can't make raids but wants to progress their characters, and the PvP items were well out of whack power-wise for how early they could be acquired.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember, like, this gear right here clears AQ40. So if you have this gear, you're already ready to do AQ40. That's it. You just take this gear and like some random ass fucking blue gear, and you're gonna bulldoze fucking Molten Core. You're going to roll over Blackwing Layer, and you will start to have trouble in AQ. That's whenever you'll start to get upgrades. It's equivalent to AQ40 gear. Yeah, exactly.
More or less forced to rank if you did want to set up your character well. I mean, yes, this was the case in Classic 2, but the rank gear being available from the start made it so much better than anything else.
And it was also accelerated. So if you got the ranking gear, it took you less time. So ranking not only gave you better gear, because like you're comparing the gear, so ranking gear now is easier to get, and it's still a lot better than the content. It's comparatively even better because it comes out earlier, and also they accelerated ranking inside of Season of Mastery, and on top of that, they made Molten Core harder. So you put all these things together, and guess what? Nobody wants to fucking rank. Or sorry, nobody wants to fucking raid. Excuse me.
Including raiding gear, by the way. It was so much better, it felt like a waste of time doing the whole gearing ladder when you could just be running down Altaric Valley for 12 hours a day and eventually collecting items which were best in slot for months. And people will do whatever makes the most sense to gear their character, even if it's not fun. That's a developer game design issue to stop that scenario from arising.
Exactly. It is never the player's fault for choosing the path of least resistance. It is always the developer's fault for putting it there. Every single time that players do something, the developer is literally God. So if the players are doing something, it's because you let that happen.
Player one to do something which is less efficient for them. That's not to say there weren't plenty of decisions made which undoubtedly went a long way to help Season of Mastery and its player base. The game was absolutely packed with quality of life features. There was an XP buff to grant 40% bonus XP from all activities the moment the servers launched, in addition to a boost of XP from completing elite quests. This was later ramped up to 100% bonus XP by the time Blackwing Lair had launched. It's
amazing how bad that was. Because whenever I went to level up on Fresh with Wrath of the Lich King leveling, and like they had joyous journeys, which made you level twice as fast as well. The leveling was so nice. It was so relaxing. You got to 70 in like a week or so, and it's like a relatively hardcore play. Obviously, you had some people it would take them 3 weeks or so. It was just so relaxing. You could do whatever you wanted. It was great.
I'm a bit of a questing enjoyer and don't mind a slower pace on leveling, but the server by its nature is seasonal. You need some kind of extra incentive to get people through the content a little.
Well, it's also the problem that PoE was running into. It's like whenever you have to fill out all of your Atlas bonuses, you have to fill out all of your fucking keystones, and then your watchstones. Like, remember how bad that was? And then they finally got rid of the watchstones, or they nerfed them effectively, because it was just so much work that a player had to do every single league. And if PoE can realize this whenever the amount of work is effectively probably 30 hours, and WoW can't figure it out whenever the amount of work is 200 hours, I don't know what to say.
Bit faster, and I think that's fine. The cost of mounts were reduced because if you're hitting level 40 much faster than intended, your pockets are going to be pretty empty. This ensured you got your wolf, horse, mechanostrider, or whatever else the moment you were able to. Professions underwent significant changes to increase the availability of materials and speed up the rate at which items were crafted. On launch, you could receive items like elemental earth or fire from mining thorium. All endgame zones had a greater number of mines.
Yeah, and that was a big improvement. I wish that the guys that made Season 4 for WoW and Shadowlands make the next Season of Mastery. Just put them on it, and I bet it'll be a lot fucking better than what we got.
Mining and herbing nodes, Black Lotus, in addition to their own spawns, could now be obtained as rare drops from all high-level herbs, similar to how Fel and Frost Lotus work in TBC and Wrath. Alongside Blackwing Lure releasing, further updates were made to alchemy so that those with the highest level of the profession could proc bonus crafts, similar to what those with master into potions, flasks, or transmutations could do in TBC. And in the AQ40
yeah, procking extra flasks was like, I remember my mom one time procced 5 primal mites. She never forgot that. Back in Burning Crusade, this was fucking massive. This is like hitting the lottery.
This extra procs idea was extended to more cooldown based items such as Arcanite bars or cured rugged hides. It was in Season of Mastery that Blizzard really took a shot at cracking down on boosting, something which players had piloted into a fine art in Classic. The calculation of damage caused and XP gained was changed.
Yeah, see, like, nobody cares about this stupid shit. Like, they shouldn't have they don't need to nerf boosting. Why is this a problem? You see, the reason why boosting was necessary and people wanted to boost is because not playing the game with boosting was boring and not fun. So the solution there isn't to nerf boosting, it's to make the rest of the game more fun. Because if you nerf boosting, and now it's like, well, I still want to get there, but now I have to do this thing that isn't fun, well, most people just aren't going to do it. It's common sense. Well, no one's playing at low levels? That's not true at all. There was plenty of people playing at low levels, especially if you make a global server. There'd always be enough people to do it. Boosting was not the problem.
That mob tagging was no longer effective. This was when a low-level player hit a mob once to gain a tag, and then a higher-level player would finish it off in one hit. You repeat this many times over, and it used to be good experience per hour. A ton of changes were made to elite mobs in dungeons, including them gaining immunity to snaring effects after 30 seconds, roots 30 seconds later, and a further 30 seconds later a 50% movement speed buff. This made the boosting methods at the time more or less all completely invalid.
I just can't believe, like, who gives a fuck about this? I know obviously they changed it because the community wanted this, but like, I hope people ask, why do people want these things? It's because questing was fucking terrible in Classic WoW. It was fucking garbage. Of course people want to have different ways to be able to level faster.
selected dungeons such as Zul'Farrak, Maradon, and Strat. In time, and even during Wrath, there are still ways to boost, but it's nowhere near the industrial scale non-stop mage spam in every chat channel that it used to be in Classic. And with tons of bonus XP from questing, it wasn't going to take you anywhere near as long to get to 60, even just through normal play. There was also an LFG tool added into Season of Mastery 2, and now that I go back and look at it, it does appear to be a bit of a framework for what we've ended up getting when it comes to Wrath. All these for me were positive changes from the original game, which made sense when the server was destined to be seasonal. Another addition which was totally new and unexpected was the Soul of Iron buff. During Classic, a group of players had already begun to forge out a new way of playing the game, as opposed to the standard hit level cap and then go PvP or PvE. It was all about undergoing the hardcore challenge, with varying levels of self-assigned difficulty, no grouping, no trading, and perhaps most challenging of all, no dying, all the way from level.
This I always thought was fucking stupid. Like, I mean, yes, obviously I watched Never Joker and them, they cleared Rag, right? It was kind of cool to see that. I mean, for sure, but I think this whole hardcore thing and everything about it is just, like, listen, any game that requires an internet connection, I'm not going to give a fuck about hardcore in that game. I've had 2 lag spikes today.
1 to 60, and this community had been gaining traction and interest throughout Classic. Enter Season of...
I always felt like this is something that was pushed by streamers for more content. Like, I did Iron Man back in the day, but I just did it for content, you know? Like, it's not like this is something I would do on my own.
Mastery, and Blizzard added NPCs to Ironforge and Undercity, which allowed the player to toggle on World of Warcraft's first look at a hardcore mode. This was simply a buff that showed the player had never died. There were no real official rules to this challenge. It was left entirely in the community's hands to handle from then on out.
I will also say that having the little souls that are all around the world that would show like where everybody died, I thought this was beautiful. What a great idea. That was really smart.
The Road to Ragnaros challenge pushed by the hardcore community, where they aimed to defeat Ragnaros with a full raid of players who had never known defeat. And they were successful in doing that, by the way. There were additional tabards for completing raids without dying, as well as a feat of strength achievement, which you can get on the Wrath servers, for hitting 60 on Season of Mastery without ever dying. Soon enough, you'll see people start to ask, how did you get that tabard when the seasonal players begin to transfer to Wrath? It was a fun challenge, a nod to the community, and up to Ragnaros being defeated, it was the center of hype surrounding these new servers, more so than any other change that had been made. People were invested in the drama and the stories created at the time. Who is already level 60? How did they do it? Who was the first one? Has anyone died at level 60? What happened? Are they really going to be able to kill Ragnaros? And so on. And at the time when seasonal servers were launching, people were asking for a hardcore specific server to mitigate people's efforts to grief, which were quite plentiful, by the way. Who knows, second time around, maybe there's enough interest. More on that later. Right then, on to the big one, raiding. This was the big focus of Season of Mastery. It was about mastering this revamped and buffed content. First up, buff and debuff limits have been removed from the game. No worrying about those anymore.
That was a good thing. Getting rid of debuff limits should have been like... This should have been gone in Classic Wrath, or Classic Vanilla. Like, it was just fucking stupid. It was clearly, like, the debuff limit on bosses, in my mind, this was clearly a technological limitation, or some sort of just, you know, oversight that Blizzard had that they fixed later on. And it just made the game harder. That was about it.
Very nice. Well, buffs were no longer a part of raiding content. This had been a massive thorn in the side for players during Classic. You still needed your consumable.
I still think they should have just made world buffs an item. Like, you complete the quest for Onyxia, or you're in the area for Onyxia, it just puts an item in your inventory, and it's like, this is your Onyxia buff, and you can only hold one at a time or something like that.
but they were a lot easier to get thanks to the profession changes we have already talked about. Also, and very importantly, this meant Blizzard had a realistic chance to tune the content around how powerful players were expected to be without those buffs. Also, come Blackwing Lure, all bosses dropped an extra piece of loot to help players get...
In my opinion, I think that a lot of people like doing speed runs more than they like doing the actual difficult runs. Because playing classic WoW on, like, just at the actual pace it was designed for is, like, super tedious because you need a bunch of consumables, a bunch of buffs, just to complete something that's just numerically hard to do. It doesn't really feel good to do this. It's just these are the checklists that you have to do, and after you achieve the checklist, you kill the boss.
You're up a little bit easier during this expedited timeline.
People want to pump,
and loads of encounters during every single raid saw changes. Bosses and Molten Core saw mechanics happen more often. Blackwing Lure had entirely new mechanics on several fights, such as Chromagus, where you had to hide behind an ice block. Zul'Gurub had additional ways to acquire mounts added to it, and encourage you to take on a more challenging variation of Hakkar, leaving some of the priests alive. AQ40 had a dynamic difficulty, where you could choose the level of challenge you wanted, and throughout encounters, various tentacles or even a vision of Cthulhu himself would appear in fights. Naxxramas had a host of new spells and items to give players new and creative ways to take on encounters.
I didn't play this, but I thought it was fucking cool.
Changes to each raid, more than I can realistically go over here. And from all the people I've talked to who have done a lot of raiding in Season of Mastery, they all more or less say the same thing. It's actually pretty cool, and it's a shame that more people didn't stick through it and actually get...
Well, nobody's going to stick through it because it takes more time to get there than it does to do it. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours farming consumables to do a raid. Nobody wants to spend fucking 15 minutes in between every wipe just so you can get back to the same place that you were standing at before. Oh wait, trash respawned, now we have to kill that again. No, nobody wants to do this. Like, there are, and whenever I say nobody, I mean very clearly, there are somebodies that wanted to do this. However, I think that they were much more of a minority than people would like you to believe. I think that just the truth is that most people don't want to sit around and farm out consumables for 3 hours just to do a 2-hour raid. Alright, we're chilling.
Give it a chance. I kind of wish I did sometimes personally, but the thing is, even with the changes made, classic raiding is still pretty time consuming. Even with easier to get consumables, harder content is going to mean you go through them a lot faster. And for me personally, though raiding had changed and the revamped encounters would have been great to see more of, what didn't change was the power ranking of how classes played during raids. Blizzard had voiced at the start of Season of Mastery they hoped things such as the debuff limit removal and raid alterations opened up the opportunity for players to bring a wider variety of classes and specs during the raiding content. It did not. Here's a 2-week snapshot of passes from actual Naxx back in Classic compared to the seasonal version. It turns out the classes at the top remain there with or without world buffs. Numbers wise, everyone is still going for those well-known meta picks. For example, the Classic snapshot here saw 111,000 warrior passes compared to less than 1,000 shaman DPS across both specs, about 1,200 druids, and less than 1k rep hallers. Season of Mastery saw just under 8,000 warrior passes and under 100 ret, shaman, and druid DPSs respectively. No one is playing the hybrids in raiding content.
It's because they suck. That's why nobody plays. It's because they sucked. Well, oh, why is nobody playing a Rep Paladin or a Moon Boy? Because they're bad. Like, make them better, and then more people are gonna play them.
What this season did fail to change that in any way at all. I think a lot of us predicted that harder content cements the meta before Season of Mastery even launched, and that is very much proven to be the case now. Also, most of the classes are still just one button. I don't know about you, but after having gone through Classic and TBC, and now seen how classes evolve in Wrath, going back to playing a one-button game is a really hard sell for me right about now.
I think that classes felt finished in Wrath. Like, classes, I felt like it was like, all right, it's done now. You know, every class has like its big fucking mega ability for Wrath, and that's all they need. I felt like also, again, they felt finished at the end in Legion. They felt finished, I would argue, some classes, although I think they were just massively over-designed in Mists of Pandaria.
On top of class balance, the faction balance also did what was very predictable. Alliance proved throughout Classic that from a performance point of view, more often than not, Paladin is gonna do better than Shaman. Also, more PvPers tended to play Horde for the racials, and if you care more about PvE, you actually still do want to PvP a lot for the ranking gear, and you're more likely to get instant queues for Battlegrounds, meaning better honor per hour if on Alliance. Throughout Seasonal Mastery, Alliance was quite consistently about 2/3 of the total player base, according to publicly available sources. Speaking of PvP,
yeah, I think if they do a Season of Mastery again, they should just add Draenei and Blood Elves and let everybody have Paladins and Shamans. Like, if you actually want to have the game be good, and you want to have it be balanced, and people not to just ignore one element of the game, yeah, just let everybody have all the classes.
So let's give that a quick mention. So we've touched on the gear already. It was too good to be available from day one, or at least the rank 12 and above epic gear was absolutely too good. The rank 10 gear was still very powerful, however. Maybe even that should have been considered a bit too good for day one. There was another big change though, which was made to ranking. So what they did in short was doubled ranking point gains. This meant the grind to high ranks was cut in half, taking it from a matter of months to weeks. What this didn't change was the requirement to play for many hours a day when on the grind, the need to pull boost to...
I think that poop socking it for for 3 weeks or 4 weeks is not that big of a deal.
To ensure more high-end spots became available, or the fact that you aren't fighting against the opposite faction when you're ranking, you're fighting among your own faction to place as high as possible. At one point in Seasonal Mastery before it launched, it looked as though they were considering halving rank decay instead of doubling RP. This would have led to a much more casual-friendly experience, as you aren't fighting against your ranking point decay nearly as hard each week.
I think what would have made it better is if they just didn't have it in the game, because it's fucking garbage. It was garbage then, it was garbage in Classic, and it was garbage in Season of Mastery. It was garbage, period, because the idea of it is garbage. What a fucking surprise. I don't know why anybody's even debating this.
Now, personally, I've never been a fan of the ranking system. I don't know how this system made it into the first seasonal server after having seen how it went in Classic. I guess it is a core feature, which is why it's hanging on, but from a game design perspective...
it's fucking garbage. Just get rid of it. I never want to see this again.
You know, players literally have to play an insane amount over a few weeks if they want the top rewards. No other area of the game forces you to do this apart from ranking. It's kind of complicated though, because you do want to gatekeep the gear rewards pretty hard due to how much better they are than anything else. If there's a season or two, I'm hoping to see a bit more work put into the ranking system and the gear rewards.
You know what they should do? They should just take it out of the game. Just get rid of the Grand Marshal gear. Or make it for Arena. And then add it in during BWL. Like, don't even have it in during MC.
Anyways, let's do a recap. Blizzard in an interview recently said they'd seen Season of Mastery as a success, and I actually tend to agree. It's definitely a smaller number of people.
I thought that Blizzard said that Season of Mastery wasn't a success. Didn't they say that they had wished more people were going to participate in it? Maybe I must have misread something, but I heard that Blizzard said it was a, they low-key said it was an L.
Actually wanting to go back when given the choice, but there's clearly a demand for it. A lot of people at least gave it a go, and I think that is important. The website, WoW.
If they make another Season of Mastery, I'll play it again. Even if it's for like 1 day.
Classic Pop shows a total number of 46,000 players have been seen on largest US server John Gabar over its life, and just over 13,000 of those were at some point level 60. We've seen some of the successes of Season of Mastery be ported over to the main game, such as the blueprints for changing boosting, for example. And from publicly visible sources on Ironforge.pro, there was a peak raiding population of around 11,000 players over the space of a week. And
that's pretty fucking good, I would say so. 11,000 people raiding, absolutely. But again, like, I think boosting is like, why would somebody not want to boost whenever the most influential changes in Season of Mastery were at level 60? Why would you want to play Season of Mastery? For me, like, tell me why you guys want to play, but I'd want to try the new raids. I'd want to try the new Molten Core and see what the fuck they're trying to do with it. Like, that's it. Yeah.
From Blizzard's point of view, I'd imagine it takes a smaller team only a bit of their time to dedicate to Season of Mastery. They have already rebuilt Classic on new modern infrastructure, things such as altering numbers for ranking point games, releasing content earlier or later, things of that nature all seem like fairly quick fixes. And I would expect Season of Mastery had a ton of value from an informational point of view.
I think so too. It was definitely, if you look at it as an exploratory measure, Season of Mastery was a massive success.
Instead of just hearing what people are saying, what will they do when they are really given a choice? What is just a vocal minority shouting for something, and what do people actually want to engage with? All in all, I do...
Yeah, somebody says lower respec and training costs, boost experience, no dungeon spamming. I disagree with no dungeon spamming. Who cares if somebody wants to level to 60 with dungeon spamming? Why is this a bad thing? Why should somebody not be able to dungeon level just because you don't think that it's good enough? Here's how much I think respec should cost. 0. 0 gold, 0 silver, 0 copper. Respecking is fucking annoying. It's just a gold sink. And if it's a seasonal server, we don't need to hear about, oh, it's going to hurt the economy. The game's going to be dead by that time. Who cares? Fuck that. I never want to have to pay for another respec in my life. There's no reason for it. Just allow dual spec? No. Just allow all specs. Just let people play whatever they want. Who fucking cares? It's for fun. Yeah, what the fuck? Like, why? Like, what the why do you have to pay 50 gold? Why do you have to pay 5 gold? It's just a waste of fucking time.
Expect there to be another seasonal server for Classic.
Yeah, paid respec. It's a mobile. Yeah, you're right. This is a mobile game feature. If you had in Raid Shadow Legends, AFK Arena, you have to pay a certain amount of crystals to respec your characters, and somehow the people want this in Classic WoW. Yeah, it's just a mobile game mechanic. Get the fuck out of here. It's garbage.
Not for the Burning Crusade. I think Blizzard have already outlined there doesn't appear to be enough interest for that. For Wrath, quite possibly, but it's too far away to say at this point. For Classic though, it could go one of two ways. Clearly there are some mega Classic fans out there who would play any fresh that they are given by Blizzard. A kind of player who would enjoy more or less a no changes 2019 Classic release all over again, with only the minor quality of life or bug fixes which were...
This was so cool, man. I have to admit that you can say whatever you want about the world buff meta, but man, it was really cool to go around with your whole fucking guild to the different places to get everybody their buffs, man. That was so fucking cool, wasn't it? Yeah.
Made over Classic's original duration, and possibly to have the Chrono Boon in from day one, just to make world buffs a little less painful.
I think the Chrono Boon was a stupid decision. It was good, but it was badly implemented. It could have been much better.
I'm pretty confident that there are people out there who just want to play Classic as it was without all of these different changes. Fan servers have shown time and time again that this demographic exists.
Oh, absolutely. Of course people are going to want that. But even like, servers like Turtle WoW and like Ascension, they have like massive changes to the game. And how so? I wish that the world buffs were given to your character as a consumable. So instead of, if your character was eligible for the buff, you could, instead of receiving a buff, you would receive a consumable that you could use whenever you wanted. That's what I would like to see.
Option 2 is we go deeper down the seasonal rabbit hole. We've done raid changes. Surely the next step is class changes, gear rebalancing, stat allocation, and so on. Do they make hit and crit from percentage into ratings to make...
Fuck that. No. Don't do that. I want to see fucking let's see. What's a weapon that sucks? Spinal Reaper. Spinal Reaper from Ragnaros is garbage. Take off the internal cooldown. Get rid of that and make it a 4.0 speed weapon. Just like the Pendulum of Doom. Change it like that. Make it something interesting. Give the chromatic boots, like, you know, make them different. Give them, I don't know, like haste rating or something like that. Change the gear. Because if you want people to accomplish harder raids, you can't give them the same rewards. You've got to give them better gear.
Make them more easy to balance. Will all specializations for each class get a tier set, and tier now perhaps drops as tokens? How about new craftable gear from tailoring, leatherworking, and blacksmith? Maybe
Absolutely.
other professions, which aims to help out hybrid DPS a little. Maybe instead Blizzard goes full in on the hardcore community's initial success, giving an actual hardcore server. Maybe you even lose items or experience on death, a version of World of Warcraft which adds a ton of risk to the open world. Well, why not all of these? Why not just release the lot and let people make a choice? I think it would be a good idea to only do one thing at once. I really don't believe...
Yeah, I think they should just do one thing at a time. I think they should do a new seasonal mastery server and then do it with the perspective of we want to make classic WoW as good as it can possibly fucking be. Like, we want to make the content as fun as it can be. We want to get as many people into the game. And it's like, yes, we want to retain some of the essence of what the game really was. But primarily, we want to see how far we can push this. I would fucking love that. You know what I kind of look at it as? I look at it as like, you know how they had like the Convergence mod and like Dark Souls Cinders for Dark Souls 3? Well, I would argue that Dark Souls Cinders and Convergence mod were just better versions of Dark Souls 3. And I would say even Daughters of Ash was at least a very different, I don't know if you could say better, but it was a very different version of it. I would like to see them effectively do a Convergence mod or a Cinders mod of Classic WoW.
If the seasonal server does much to fragment the player base from the main game, and people are always going to be playing whatever the main game is, but I think for seasonal servers it's in its best interest not to offer too many choices. Just do one thing at once, try and do it well, make sure that everybody who wants that thing is playing that thing, and maybe something different can happen during the next seasonal server. Don't overload them. The same as releasing with too many realms, it spreads the interest too thin. For me, and this kind of goes for all variations.
2 realms. PvP and PvE realm. You want to play on a PvP server? Go for it. You want to play on a PvE server? Have fun. Only 2 realms. And, oh, but there's going to be queues. Well, then get rid of the queues. Well, then there's going to be server lag. Well, then fix that. Well, then you can't do that. All right, well, fuck this. I'll go play Final Fantasy. Fucking fix the game. Make it work. It's not our problem.
Of if and when they do a next season. I'd level casually because I enjoy leveling, I like the world of vanilla, and that's always been a very fun thing for me to do. Playing a 10 game is really very, very dependent on what's going on in Wrath, assuming it would launch in Wrath, of course. If they do anything around the time when Ulduar is releasing, for example, that's not going to be any good for me. It also depends how much time investment is.
They should do a season of mastery after ICC is out.
Really needed to get into it. Playing one version of World of Warcraft already takes a while, and if I'm going to be raiding, I'd rather have a set guild which I play with. I'm not interested in pugging. For Season of Mastery, there were actually a lot of positives and definitely some negatives. That's what happens when things change, and I can tell you after having played World of Warcraft since, well, actual vanilla, and now having played Classic for a few years, people forget how often things would break or be bugged back in the original expansions. They weren't quite all so smooth sailing. I think it's pretty easy to scapegoat any single decision you didn't like about Season of Mastery as to the reason why it quote-unquote failed, but in the end, these seasonal servers are just always going to have a smaller niche community, more or less whatever Blizzard end up doing, which is why I personally don't mind them going absolutely crazy with changes if they are so inclined. Hopefully when Blizzard announce the transfers off Season of Mastery and its ending date, they do some kind of closing post on how things went and ideas they may have for the future. That would be really great to hear about. I guess let's wait and see if there's a Season 2 and what they choose to do with it. Let me know what you'd like to see for Season 2.
They have to have unique gear and unique items. that are overpowered as fuck. Like, I feel like if Season of Mastery 2 comes out and you can't get the legendary Ashbringer, it's dead on arrival. It's just dead on arrival. Like, who cares? Who cares? You can't get the original Ashbringer. Why does this even matter? Like, why are we even thinking about this? Like, let's add some real fucking fun shit into this.
And if you gave Season 1 a go, how did it go for you? Were you happy with it? Did you not like it? How long did you play?
100%.
All that good stuff. That's everything for today though, guys. Thank you all so much for watching and listening in. And I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Yeah, I'm very, very positive about the idea of Season of Mastery. Extremely positive. Classic Plus, I think, is going to be the future. Whether it's Wrath of the Lich... I would like if they did Classic Plus and then they just implemented a lot of things from Wrath into Classic Plus. And a few things from Burning Crusade into it. Because I do think that you can... I made more memories at the chain of Blackrock Mountain than I did in all of Outland. I think that the world of Vanilla WoW and Azeroth originally was fucking phenomenal. I like this video from Lily as well. I'm glad that he's bringing this up. I hope more people talk about this and more people are getting into this whole...
Remember Season of Mastery? It should be coming to a close fairly soon.
Pause that real quick. I really hope to see Blizzard try this again with even more changes. This would be fucking amazing. I would be so happy to see it. Blackrock Mountain Chain was one of the best ever was. Blackrock Depths, Classic WoW, greatest dungeon of all time in WoW. Nothing has come close. Nothing. Like, it was an actual fucking dungeon. It was an actual fucking city. It was amazing. It wasn't just, 4 conveniently placed trash packs before a boss. No. It was all kinds of crazy shit. Season of Mastery. Like, imagine if, like that door that Baelgar is guarding, whenever you go through into BRD and you take a left and you open the gate and there's like that big lava elemental guy and he's like guarding a door. What if in Season of Mastery 2 you could open that door and you could find out what the fuck is behind that? That would be really fucking cool. That's the kind of stuff that they need to do. Yeah, like, basically answer the questions that every player had back in original vanilla. The super hidden boss. Have it be a boss that's just, like, ridiculously fucking overpowered. Have it be, like, on the scale of Atiesh for the Naxxramas questline, but put it in the game from day one. And have him just sitting there. He's right there. If you want to try and fight him, he's just sitting there waiting for you. And that's it. The Flame Torch room at level 55. Yeah, that was fucking brutal. If they're going to try a PoE mechanic, they need to put as much effort into it as PoE. Exactly. I agree with that for sure. Didn't you open the door behind the magma giant? You did, and that opened the door to the Emperor. But that was it. Winter Spring, 40-man dungeon up north. Yeah, something like that. That would be really cool. Using Guild... all right, so if they did a Classic Plus, what's the content that I'd want to see? I would want to see, yes, like maybe a BRD raid, a 40-man raid. And then I'd also want to see a Scarlet Crusade raid. And maybe have that above, like, Tears Fall. And then I'd also want to see, obviously, Karazhan Crypts. And Grim Batal. I would really like to see a Grim Batal raid. Mount Hyjal, I don't really think would make sense, to be honest with you. I don't think Mount Hyjal would make sense. Undermine Ashara too. Let's see. What's something else that I'd want to see? Fuck. You had Scarlet Crusade raid in Classic, remember? No. Well, yeah, we had the 10-man leveling parties. That's true. Let's see. Oldham? Yeah. Oh, an Oldham raid. that actually goes through the original Titans and it explains like kind of how the world was ordered and shit like that. Ashara was meant to be the OG Wintergrass, but yeah, I watched that video. Let's see. I think just that would be great. Like just fucking do that. And yeah, we'll start, yeah, just do that. That's all there is. That's all it takes. Caverns of Time to some Warcraft 3 level. Bro, I would love if they had Caverns of Time to the original Warcraft 2 with all of the warring clans and like the fucking quintessential alliance and horde conflict. Because like that's what I thought WoD was going to be. I thought they were like, well, fuck, they're going to retell the story of like, because like that's why everybody was bat-chesting about WoD, is because it's like, oh, it's the Laughing Skull clan. Oh, it's the Bleeding Hollow clan. It's like, you fucking remember those guys, right? Because, oh, those were the red ones. Those were the blue ones. Those were the Storm Reavers. So I think the Storm Reavers were the blue ones. And they had fucking ogres and they did lightning shit. It was like, fuck, that's awesome. Like, that was the really, really cool shit, man. And they just got rid of it. I was very sad about it.